Power bill through the roof? At 320 Solar, that power bill will be no more. In fact, about 90% of our customers report lower solar payments than with electricity. That's more power in your pocket. 320 Solar. Power up. Going solar with 320 may cost you nothing down. But the work we do is not a $0 job. With a 10-year roof penetration warranty and solar panels guaranteed for 25 years, you can have peace of mind knowing you will do the job right every time without question. 320 Solar. Power up.
Touchdown, Tampa Bay.
Well, this is all done by just the pre-snap alignment.
Another great team win in Atlanta. It's all about the comeback. Merry Christmas to you guys. I hope you have a great week with your families, and we'll see you Saturday in Detroit. Let's go.
Evolution. Sports Talk Television live here nightly. On Bucs Report, it's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about on tonight's show. Bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. Will you shut up and be quiet? What's going on? Welcome back to another edition of the Evolution of Sports Talk Television here live nightly on Bucs Report. It's the Sports Web on this Victory Monday. Let's go ahead. Those cannons, yes, they are loud and proud. And of course, the Bucs moved to 9-5 after a comeback win over the Atlanta Falcons 31-27. So how do we start off the Evolution of Sports Talk Television, the Sports Web, powered by 320solar.com. Bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. Again, I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. On tonight's show, we will have ABC Action News' Mr. Dennis Phillips, not only talking about fantasy football, but of course, this Tampa Bay big Buccaneer win. And then, of course, we will have Greg Allman of The Athletic at 9:40 talking about the Pro Bowl controversy, if I can talk. I'll say it slower for you. Pro Bowl controversy as the Bucs only had one make it. Is there some controversy? Should there have been other players making it? Let's hear from you tonight. What do you guys think? 727-255-0391 and 727-255-0391. And at 10:30, we'll have Liam Mitchell, YouTube extraordinaire, fan-to-fan network. And then, of course, as always, your comments, questions, and the phone calls. Want to know what you think about that big-time Bucs win. Of course, it would be nice, as Bruce Arians would say, for this team to play a full 60 minutes, which they were incapable of doing yesterday versus the Falcons. But give them credit. Is it the fact they're slow starters? Absolutely. Getting outscored 59-7 in the first quarter does not help out at all. It doesn't. And you can't win playoff games. You're not going to be able to beat those good teams. The Atlanta Falcons, you can get away with it. But even then, they were in a hole yesterday. 60 yards of total offense in that first half was just ugly. But then after that, the most important thing, I think, was the response in the third quarter. That first drive when they come out and score a touchdown, then you have the momentum. You're down 24-7, and you're on track. One field goal, 3 touchdowns, a hell of a job by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And if they win against the Detroit Lions, and we'll be live on Saturday, a day after Christmas, at the Deck Bar and Grill in Isla del Sol, getting you ready for Lions versus the Bucs with your pre-half and post-game editions. If you win, you're in. It's just that simple. No playoff scenarios, although we went through the basic math yesterday, didn't we? Didn't we, ladies and gentlemen? The Saints have the Vikings on Friday. If the Saints lose out, the Bucs win out, they win the NFC South. Why? The Bucs would have 11-5 record. The Saints would have a 10-6 record. It's just that simple. So I tell you what, let's go ahead, go out to the comments here on this Victory Monday. Definitely want to hear from you guys. Nelson, in response there, I don't know what that's all about. Ari says, go Buck. Sean says, what's up, Buckaholics? Eugene Thomas, the Buck, what you heard. Peter Blake, what's up, man? How you doing? Sean says, Bruce Arians, please let Brady cook. Eugene Thomas again, thank you, Buckaholics. You always show support. Appreciate that. Fire those cannons. There we go. We will definitely do that. Victory Monday, LFG. Johnny Dean, LFG. Sean, all I ever wanted was a team to fight back, and what a comeback. Great team win. And again, you can look at it in two ways. You can look at it where the Bucs are slow starters, which they have been this year. They have definitely been slow starter. They were slow starter in the Green Bay game. They were slow starter in the Raiders game. They have been, slow starter in this Falcons game. Why does it take so long for them to heat up? They were slow starter in the Chiefs game and the Rams game, and they finally come back in the second half. And you can also look at this team being resilient, which they are. They could have gave up. I'm not going to compare last year's team to this year's team. I'll just say this. Anytime you have a Tom Brady, you have an opportunity to win, right? 390 yards, 2 touchdowns, 31 for 45, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, we just can't say it enough. Has he not been a game changer? Has he not been a franchise changer? And then your defense comes alive. How about Devin White? Which, by the way, it's an absolute crime. There should be an investigation in the NFL. The NFL circles. How in the world can you leave Devin White off the Pro Bowl? How can you do it? 130 tackles. 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, a game changer. You look at his statistics, you could put him up there as Defensive Player of the Year. 8 sacks at the linebacking position. He's not an outside guy. He's not an edge guy. He's in the middle. And I get it. Devin White and Levante David definitely split those votes, don't they? So that kind of hurts them. And we're all used to Mr. David, Levante David, being left off the Pro Bowl, aren't we? We always are. Never gets any respect. As Blake Anthony would point out, if it were Barry Wagner and he had the same statistics, he would be voted. But the game is useless. right? I mean, there's no game in the first place. Thanks, 2020. Thanks, pandemic. So it really doesn't matter, does it? I mean, you can have 6 or 7 Pro Bowlers. But if your record stinks or you're one and done in the playoffs, does it really matter? Does it matter to you, Bucs fans? I don't hear a lot of you, so I'm thinking, doesn't matter. Right? Personal records don't matter. Big time numbers don't matter. What matters is wins and losses. Bucs team right now 9-5, and they're definitely cooking with Tom Brady. 727-255-0391. It's 727-255-0391. So, Sean, I agree with you on that. What a great upgrade and guest. Not going to touch that. We would have won by a blowout if we had Jameis yesterday. Sure. If that's what you think, okay. Nelson says, thumbs up. I kid. I know you do. That was good. I'm still going to buzz you on it. Because I know you were pulling my leg on that. I mean, and look, Brady has done this in his career. I mean, this is what Bucs fans signed up for, is it not? Is it not what we signed up for? To see the greatest of all time and a Brady lead this team back in the second half, in the fourth quarter. I mean, was that fun yesterday? I mean, I think a lot of people were having a heart attack. I got a little bit more gray here. As you can see, I'm starting to look like freaking Santa Claus. Maybe I shave this beard. Eventually, I don't think I'm going to because I kind of like it. But when they play like that in the first half, it gives you lots of stress, lots of antacid. I feel like we should have Tums or Rolaids. That spells relief because that's what that offense and defense needed yesterday. Matt Ryan came out firing. Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. The defense couldn't get off the field on third down, and that's a big no-no. Absolute no-no. And the offense overall, we talked about it. 60 total yards, not going to get it done. Just not going to get it done. I can't put my finger on it. I've watched football for so many years, cannot understand this team. Can't. So talented all over the place. Absolutely talented. Can't get it done in the first half for some reason. I don't understand it. I don't. So, Willow says a win is a win no matter how you get it. Christopher Cole, Pro Bowl is just a popularity contest and should be over with. Joel says Levante David, the most underrated linebacker in NFL history. Pretty much. I mean, you look at his statistics. I mean, what's this guy got to do? Of course, people would say, well, they got to play better on prime time. We're exactly right. But the third of that is a fan vote. What are the coaches and players looking at? I get it. White and David have their deficiencies, right? Not great in coverage. Haven't been great lately. But, 1-4, 1 sack, 1 interception, 11 tackles for loss, 104 tackles. Pretty consistent. Devin White leading the bunch there. 130 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. What do you got to do? So, Bucs fans, what do you think about the snub by the Pro Bowl? What do you think about JPP making the Pro Bowl? 9.5 sacks. Congratulations. From a guy last year that had a broken friggin' neck. I mean, put that in context, guys. A broken friggin' neck and comes back this year, was productive last year, 8.5 sacks in 10 games, now has 9.5 leading the team. Shaq Barrett had an opportunity to make the Pro Bowl, didn't. Carlton Davis, Alex Kappa. Somebody explain that to me. Alex Kappa leads in the fan voting, but can't get in the Pro Bowl. Who beat him out? 727-255-0391 at 727-255-0391. Let Brady cook, okay? I mean, how was that cooking yesterday? And I'm at home. I'm off. You know what I went through last week. I'm kind of taking some time off from the sales job because it's kind of stressful, right? Just like watching the Bucs the first half. Kind of stressful. A little bit different stress with a sales job. But it's all about production. A production business. You got to be productive. You got to produce. This team doesn't produce in the first half, namely the first quarter, getting once again outscored 59-7. And I'm watching the talking heads talk, and they talk, and they continue to talk. This team might not be good enough. They got some points, but Ryan Clark today goes on and says, basically, excuse me, in the first half, this is Bruce Arians' team. But in the second half, this is Tom Brady's team. Do you guys agree with that? Does it become a thing where there's not enough of Tom Brady at the first of the game? I mean, Bruce Arians talked about it today. We'll get to those comments. I mean, to me, at that end of the day, it's everybody's team. I'll tell you what, let's go out to the phone lines. Welcome to the evolution of sports talk television. Mr. Tampa Bay Ray Kennedy, what do you have to say leading off the sports web? Okay, I don't know what that was all about. Well, hold on a sec here. Let me go ahead and plug something in. Excuse me. Hold on. See, it's amazing when you start off a show, you're so hyped up, you're so pumped up on your monologue, you're so pumped up on Victory Monday, and what do you forget to do? Plug in a little wire. It's always that one wire. And no, we're expecting Dennis Phillips. We have no Dennis Phillips yet. So we'll keep on reading the comments. Tampa Bay Ray, call back if you like to. I'll make sure to plug it in next time. That happens sometimes. All right. So yeah, popularity contest. I definitely have never been a big time fan. Let me go out to Ray Kennedy. Ray, leading it off here on the sports web. It's amazing when you plug in one wire, how much of a difference it does. Go ahead. Have at it, my friend. Right. And hold on a sec here. I think we're having a little bit of problem. Go ahead. Keep on talking. I'm not sure what to tell you, but I think we're having a little bit of phone problems here. So let me go ahead and get back to you in a moment. We'll get Dennis Phillips on. We'll get this phone problem figured out. All right. All right. See you later. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I'll figure the situation out with the phones. Something's happened, so we'll figure it out. But let's go ahead and get out to Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News, meteorologist, and of course, sports extraordinaire here on the Evolution Sports Talk Television, the sports web. How you doing tonight, Victor?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Having a little bit of phone problems, but we'll get it figured out here. And I hope that this Bucs team offensively can get it figured out, because once again, a slow first half, down 17-0, but then they come back and win in Tom Brady fashion, 31-10. Your thoughts on this victory yesterday versus the Atlanta Falcons?
Yep. My thoughts are the phone issues are because of the great conjunction with Jupiter and Saturn out there. It's got to be doing something to to your phones. I don't know. You know, Atlanta has a history all season long of blowing leads. So I don't know if that should surprise anybody that the Bucs came back. I mean, what do you say? I mean, the team was a totally different team in the second half. You'd love to know what was said in that locker room at halftime, right?
Yeah, you would definitely love to know what was said in the locker room at halftime. And you hear from Bruce Arians at the end of the game where he's so frustrated, where, paraphrasing, he basically says to his team, if we could play a full 60 minutes, we would be unstoppable. But unfortunately, they can only play 30. But Dennis, look, you may be able to get away with that with the Atlanta Falcons coming up in 2 weeks, and yesterday, and of course against the Lions, of course, which becomes a must-win game. If you win that game, you get to the playoffs. But you can't do that versus good teams. And we've seen that this year with getting off to slow starts versus the Chiefs and the Rams and coming back in the second half and losing by 3. You just can't keep on doing it. In your opinion, what is it? Is it execution? Is it coaching? I mean, it's disappointing to hear this coaching staff keep on coming out week by week and say this and nothing really changed?
You know what? I just don't have a clue. I mean, I can't say that I've seen much like this in a long time in watching football, because you're right. I mean, you can make the argument that the team goes in at halftime and makes adjustments and then comes out in the second half and plays much better. But, a lot of times, and boy, we said this a month ago, against the good teams, they're really not making the adjustments in the second half that's going to allow them to come back and win a game. I mean, this is another mediocre team, if that, the Bucs came back and beat. So, there were a lot of articles in the last week, and I certainly, this isn't my thing talking. I'm not a sports guy, so I don't like to try to create controversy. But I certainly been reading the same headlines that you probably have too, that, there seems to be some kind of a philosophical rift between Arians and with Brady. I mean, maybe that's, and we all know all you got to do is win a game. And once that happens, that probably goes out the window. But too many times this season, this offense has looked stagnant. And you have to wonder if they're just not on the same page. I mean, to me, how could it be much different when you've got as much talent offensively as this team has? And a lot of people were saying, I love this. A lot of people were saying, oh, well, AB, ever since AB showed up, they've started losing. Well, I don't know about you. I've not heard one negative thing about him at all in the locker room. In fact, a lot of people are speculating that if Brady comes back for his second year, he's going to want AB there with him. I mean, he finally got his first touchdown this last game, AB did. So when you've got as much offensive firepower, I mean, you want to talk about where the problem still lies. The running game was still non-existent. I mean, Fournette got 2 touchdowns. If you're a fantasy player, which I started him myself, you got to be happy with those 2 one-yard touchdown runs. But honestly, the running game did nothing to help that team at all yesterday.
Yeah, they were definitely missing the victim of volume. We're on with Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News, talking sports with us here on the Evolution of Sports Talk Television, the Sports Web, powered by 320solar.com. You're exactly right. I mean, 14 carries, 49 yards, 2 touchdowns. I get it, and it seemed like the Bucs once again went away from the running game. And, of course, when you get down early, sometimes you have to do that. But for me, going forward, Ronald Jones is your best chance to win. You have to have him. They missed him on Sunday, so you're exactly right. For me, they got enough out of Fournette, but they got to get more out of that running game. And for me, Jones is definitely the answer. Going back to Brown, how impressed have you been with him, Dennis? Not only on the field, but off the field. There's been no disturbances. There's been no character issues. And it was nice to see him catch a touchdown, which, by the way, the last time he did that was in a Patriot uniform versus the Miami Dolphins. So you have to feel good for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's been targeted a good bit, but just not down the field. And, they've been using others to stretch the field. We talked about Scotty Miller over the last couple of weeks. And, and it was definitely nice that they found a way to get him the ball at the end zone. It's got him. You have to wonder next game against the Lions, which, by the way, is a horrific secondary. So you'd like to think that they could really open it up again. Evans, it seemed to me in the second half that Evans was really working hard to get open. And he does that a lot anyway, drawing penalties for pass interference and whatnot. But boy, I'll tell you, the one player that I haven't heard his name called nearly as much as I would have expected is Godwin. And you do have to wonder if AB in the mix has maybe had a negative impact on Godwin. I don't know if that's the case, but how can you go wrong offensively with as much talent as they have? I mean, I guess, they always say there's only one ball and you got so many people who are wanting it, but I'm not hearing a lot of those players talking about, boy, feed me the ball more, like you may have in previous teams and previous situations. It just seems like for whatever reason, they have not been clicking. And it's been a whole season now. I mean, you're almost at the end of the season. So you got to wonder if there's something else going on rather than just the obvious that they're not advancing the ball downfield like they'd like to. And, people say Brady's arm suspect. Earlier in the season, Brady's arm wasn't suspect. I mean, he was throwing that ball 40, 50 yards down the field and having no problems at all. So, boy, I wish I knew. But I'll tell you, just my opinion, based on what I'm seeing, they're struggling so hard to beat a mediocre team like Atlanta, and they have not looked good for weeks, really. You just have to wonder what is going to happen to that team unless they get hot at the right time to advance if they make the playoffs, which seems pretty likely they're going to. They haven't locked it in yet, right?
No, they haven't locked it in yet. You have to beat the Detroit Lions on Saturday, right after Christmas and what a Christmas present it would be for not only this Bucs organization, but Bucs fans alike, because you haven't seen the playoffs in 13 years. So you definitely have to take care of business, and you should run the table by beating the Lions and the Falcons once again. And if you can do that and somehow hope that the Saints lose out, then you have an opportunity to win the NFC South. What do you think? I mean, can the Saints lose out here and the Bucs slide into that NFC South? No.
No. The Saints, I mean, Drew Brees was probably rusty. I mean, that was a fun game to watch, by the way. If anyone, I'm sure they did, caught the Chiefs and the Saints. Taysom Hill gave that team a little bit of energy in the previous 3 or 4 weeks, but Drew Brees is your guy. Michael Thomas was out last week. He's going to be back in time for the playoffs. Will he be back in the next couple of games? I don't know. I just don't see any way in the world that the Saints lose their last 2 games. I mean, Kamara, that was another thing. When Taysom Hill was in there, he wasn't feeding the ball to Kamara. So what was happening is Kamara's numbers were kind of ragged. I mean, this last game, he got in the end zone again. Brees needed a game under his belt. I still think New Orleans is a really good team. And when you get Michael Thomas in there clicking and you get their backfield clicking, I think they're going to be a tough team. The NFC in general, I mean, every team in the NFC going into the playoffs seems to has some chinks in their armor, right? Nobody appears to be on the level of Kansas City right now. Earlier in the year, we thought maybe it was Seattle. And then earlier in the year, we thought maybe it was the Bucs. But right now, week in and week out, KC, even losing Edwards-Helaire, and he'll probably be out for the rest of the year. And then you got Le'Veon Bell, who hasn't really done too much, but you don't need to run the ball with that team. I mean, with Mahomes being Mahomes, who is going to beat that team? I mean, come on, who is going to beat the Chiefs? I just don't see anybody doing it.
I think it's going to be tough. I mean, again, look at Mahomes, the way he's playing at an MVP type of level. You talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which is a loss, but you have Le'Veon Bell there. They have a plethora of weapons, Leo Word. So going back to the NFC, how surprised and shocked were you that the Rams lost to the New York Jets just in the season? I mean, what are the Jets doing? I get it. You're trying to win football games, but at the end of the day, you have an opportunity to get a Trevor Lawrence. You're not trying to win that game. And what are the Rams doing playing down to that team?
Well, they clearly, they did not take that game seriously. They were a 17-point favorite. I mean, there's nobody on earth that I know of that would have thought the Jets could even play with that team. Everybody was talking about how Akers is going to get a ton of play in the second half because they were going to have a big lead, and Akers was going to be a stud for fantasy. He turned out to be a major bust if anybody played him. He did have a 23-yard touchdown called back for a hold, and I'm pleased about that because the guy that I'm playing had Akers, and I ended up making it to the finals with 2 waiver claims as my team was falling apart with Fuller on the suspended list for PEDs. I picked up Pollard and Hurts, Jalen Hurts and Tony Pollard, and they got me a combined 60 points for my fantasy team. So I advanced. So I think the Rams, you're right, with Robert Woods, or Bobby Trees as we call him, and Cup. I mean, it's just, come on. I mean, that team is also primed. The big question is Goff. There's question marks with every NFC team out there. I just don't see any question marks with the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's not going out on a limb. I mean, everybody knows how good they are. And the NFC, I do think, could be wide open. Anybody could win the NFC, don't you think? But it's up against the AFC that I just see. I just don't see it. I don't care where the game is. I'm directly across the street from Ray J. And even if the Bucs had a home game, I just don't see it.
Yeah, well, the Bucs have an opportunity to get that 5th seed now because of that Rams loss. They have to basically win out, and I believe the Rams play Arizona next week. Seattle still has something to say, but if the playoffs ended today, the Bucs would play the Seattle Seahawks. Do you like that matchup? You look at Russell Wilson from a fantasy perspective; he's really cooled off. He's on my team. I know this all too well. Here's a guy that's putting up 25 to 30 points. Maybe even more than that, and now you can't even get 20 out of him. What's happened with Russell Wilson in this Seahawks offense, and possibly could the Bucs be catching him at the right time?
I think they could. I think you're 100% right. I mean, you've got DK, who's been everything, but Tyler Lockett hasn't really done too much. He was always kind of the second choice anyway. Chris Carson was hurt for a good 4, 5, 6 weeks. He's just getting back. But you're right. Wilson, it seemed like earlier in the year, Wilson was just on the money with everything that he did. And if you look at his past, his history, he's kind of done that in his past. I mean, he can start out really hot and then fade at the end. And not to mention Pete Carroll, he said earlier on going into the season, we were going to pass first. It was going to be a total philosophical change for him. He's always been a guy who likes to develop, who likes to establish the run and play pass off of that. But he's like, nope, you know what? I'm going to let Russell do his thing. And it worked. But now all of a sudden, you got guys outside of DK Metcalf. You're throwing to Will Dissly. You're throwing to some guys that maybe they just don't have the depth that a lot of people thought. With Carson hurt, I mean, who is Wilson really throwing it to outside of Lockett? And they haven't had a lot. So maybe that's catching up with him. But I agree with you. I think if the Bucs were to face the Seahawks, they certainly, at that game, they should be a field goal favorite in that game, I would think.
Yeah, you would think so. But again, the way this team starts out, you're just not sure. But, the Seahawks, they don't have a great defense. So you would think, once again, the Bucs offense would have some type of advantage. Let's talk about that defense yesterday in the second half, slowing down a Matt Ryan, 1 for 3 on third downs and basically 2 sacks. I mean, what did you see out of that defense yesterday, even without a Carlton Davis who went out with a groin injury, which could be some concern for Bucs fans going forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan still threw for 370-something yards, didn't he? I mean, he still put some numbers out there. And Ridley had a monster game, so you've got to wonder if you put, DK Metcalf in the same combination as you have with Ridley, and, you have one guy who really lit it up and not a lot of other people did. And a lot of people have, talked about the rushing game. I mean, the Falcons rushing game. I mean, it's just, to me, the defense stepped it up, and everybody. I mean, I don't know if there was an inspirational halftime talk. I really don't, but I mean, everything clicked in the second half. The defense started playing, the offense started playing, and I failed to just accept that. How many times in a row now have we been saying, "Oh, it's a slow start." I mean, with New Orleans, it was a slow start. They never found a way back in, but this team, for whatever reason, that seems to be the way that it is with this team, and they've yet to be able to fix it. And it's to the point now, yeah, they can get by the Falcons, they can get by the Lions, but boy, you get into the playoffs, I just can't imagine something like that is going to be that they can overcome. I just don't. Although you're right, though. Again, Russell Wilson has not been playing very well, and Carson's back now, though, so we'll have to see. But yeah, you nailed it. The defense has stepped up in the second half. The offense stepped up, but boy, what about the first half? I mean, they looked terrible against an undermanned team with no Julio. I mean, and it just, you just wonder. You wonder what they're going to do.
Yeah, I don't get it. I honestly don't understand this team. I watched so many years of football, so many years of Buccaneer football. We're on with Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News. With that being said, Devin White being snubbed out of the Pro Bowl. You have JPP making it. Once again, Levante David. I mean, Devin White, Levante David. Does some other Buccaneers have a case there? Or in your opinion, should a Devin White and a Levante David made the Pro Bowl?
I mean, it's hard to argue against White. I mean, you sometimes wonder if whoever votes for the Pro Bowl, whether it's the writers or whatnot, you have to wonder if there's just, it's like anything. It's like the Oscars. You wonder if a lot of times if they've seen the movies that they're really voting for. And the same thing for a college national championship. But, you always wonder, have those sports writers really seen all those West Coast teams that are playing? And you wonder sometimes if everybody who picks the Pro Bowl, if they've really paid attention to what's happening this year, or do they just go with the names that they're always familiar with? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but you got to wonder sometimes, because I agree with you 100%. I think it could have easily gone the other way.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the guy they voted in, Fred Warner, I mean, give him credit. He's been the defensive leader on a very bad San Francisco team, which has, been besieged by defensive injuries. So I get the reason, but again, fan voting is only 1/3 of it. You have coaches and players. So you would think that, recognizing a player like a White and David, the lights would turn on in their head and say, look, these are top premier linebackers. And I get it. They may split some votes because they basically play the same position, but at the end of the day, why not put both of them in, or at least Devin White? I mean, we're talking about a player who already has 8 sacks, and he's not even the type of linebacker that's going to rush off the edge. It's an extraordinary year for a guy, and I get it. He has his faults with, coverage and everything like that, but still the numbers don't lie.
They don't, but I think maybe you have to wonder if it's just a matter of, like with Major League Baseball with the All-Star game, and I know it isn't broke up like this, but with each of those teams, they have to have at least one player on, and you wonder in the mindset, all right, well, if you're going to put JPP on, or you're going to put somebody else on from the defense, that's the one player. Let's keep it even with everybody within the NFL. I don't know if they do it that way, but you got to wonder if there's, especially with the fans' perspective, and truthfully, I didn't know that it was the 1/3 number that you talked about. I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me because, I mean, JPP has a story that people know, and they heard about what happened with him. And I think right off the bat, they're immediately going to, from the fans' perspective, well, if they're going to do somebody from the Bucs, you got to go with him.
Yeah, you definitely got to go with him. So looking forward here, the Bucs have the Lions on Saturday. Of course, they win and they're in. So who are you looking at from the standpoint? And I'll tell you what, let's see if I think we got our phone lines back. Do you want to take a call here really quick from somebody?
Sure.
It's a minute.
Sure.
All right. Let's go out to the phone lines. Welcome to the Evolution. You're on with yours truly, along with Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News. What do you have to say? Well, we kind of talked about that there, Rob. Can you hear Dennis? Can you hear what he's saying? Can you hear him?
I can't hear. No.
Can't hear him. Okay. Again, we're having some phone problems, so we're gonna have to figure that out. He was asking about the Jets. We kind of talked about that already. So
can you imagine being a Jets fan and thinking you're going to get Trevor Lawrence? We're finally going to have some now. But there has been a lot of talk that Lawrence did not want to go to New York. Or didn't want to play for the Jets. Now, whether that was secondhand information, I don't know. I mean, was he going to pull like an Elway did and said, "I'm not going to go. You either get rid of me or I'm not going to play." I don't know how that would have played out, but I'm pretty sure from his perspective, he'd probably rather play in Jacksonville than New York, just for the weather. First of all, closer to South Carolina. I don't know where his family's from, but I don't think they're from Clemson. But regardless, I mean, come on. I mean, from the buddy of mine I work with is a huge Jets fan, and he's like, it's just typical Jets. Yeah. I mean, they found a way to lose even when they won.
Yeah, pretty much. You find a way to lose, and then when you need to lose, you can't deliver the deal. Trevor Lawrence, to you at this point, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars if everything plays out like it does, right?
And you know what? I was sitting here looking at the lines, actually. I mean, the Jets have actually been playing decent ball for the last couple of weeks. I mean, nobody expected them to go to L.A. as a 17-point dog and win outright. But, I'm looking at some of the games here. I mean, the Jets are at home, 9.5-point dog to the Browns, who've been playing really, really good ball lately, too. But, still an 8-9-point home dog. Jacksonville, they're only a 7-point dog at home against the Bears. And I don't know if Mitch Trubisky is going to scare anybody. Montgomery's actually been playing really great ball over the last few weeks. So it's certainly possible one of those two teams as a home dog could win again. So the Jets may still luck out. Who knows?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So again, the Lions on Saturday. How's the weather going to look in the Tampa Bay area on Saturday?
Cold. Yeah. It's going to be highs in the 50s. Okay. Now, the wind won't be an issue on Saturday. The wind would be an issue on Friday. But on Saturday, good football weather, highs in the mid-50s, not really all that breezy, and a lot of sunshine. So, actually, it'll be really nice football weather.
Well, that's good. I don't know what the weather's going to be like in Detroit, but I definitely feel like
the game is in Detroit?
Yes.
Oh, well, it's in a dome anyway, right?
Anyway, so it doesn't really matter. That's the thing. Yeah. That's really the thing at this point. Really quick, I want to get back to this, and then I'll get you out of here, Dennis. We're on with Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News. Green Bay right now, are they the best team in the NFC? I know how they played lately. Do they have, a home field advantage, of course, playing in the frozen tundra, right?
Yep. Yeah, if you watched the last game, Rodgers, once or twice a season, I mean, and granted, if you happen to have Rodgers or Devontae Adams on your fantasy teams, you're probably cursing them because they picked the worst week in the semifinals to go ahead and lay an egg. They didn't look good, but don't you just feel that Rodgers kind of had a chip on his shoulder going into this season? I think a lot of people were saying he's too old. He's past his prime. And you just had to wonder if maybe in his mind, he really had something to prove. Because I'll tell you, there are so many times, if you're an Aaron Jones owner, you're probably ticked off about it. There have been so many times they've had the ball on the 1 or the 2 yard line, and instead of giving the ball to Williams or Jones, he's throwing the ball. And whether he's throwing it to Tanyan or whether he's throwing it to Adams, he's really padding his numbers. His touchdown ratio has been tremendous. And how can you possibly go against that team, as you said, in the frozen tundra in late December and into January? I mean, you got to love the advantage that they have, even if there won't be a fan base there screaming like there usually is. I mean, you have to think that is the ultimate home field advantage.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, and I think they're a dangerous team. But because the Bucs were able to beat them, who knows what happens? But this team definitely has to get it in gear. Real quick, give me a prediction: Bucs versus the Lions on Saturday. I know it's early, but it's one day after Christmas. What are you thinking? Is this a blowout? Finally, can the Bucs finally put together 60 minutes of football?
Well, if you remember, I did say take the Falcons plus the points against the Bucs. That Vegas line had a huge swing in terms of the money coming in on Tampa. And usually when there's that kind of a swing, you go the other way. This particular game, the line opened 7.5. It's up to 8.5. So there's not a lot of play there. Tell you what, Swift is a really, really good running back. However, that's the Bucs' strength, defending the run. And when Matt Stafford is been injured, I mean, he manned up and played pretty hard against the Titans, but I have a feeling that the Bucs are going to shut down the running game as much as they can. And I love Swift. And by the way, I have him on my fantasy team going into the finals, so I'm hoping I'm wrong to an extent. But I really kind of think that secondary, the Lions secondary, can be burned. Maybe even more so than Atlanta, because if you remember, Atlanta earlier in the season was giving up a ton of yardage. But in the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, they've done a lot better against the pass. The Lions, on the other hand, have just been crushed by injuries. Clearly they got a new head coach now. And I just have a feeling that the Bucs are going to, and this is not a homer prediction at all. I just kind of have a feeling the Lions are going to have a tough time running the ball against that team, and the Bucs are going to open it up. I think they probably win by 17, maybe 34-17.
I like it. There you go. Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News. Thanks a lot for your time here on the evolution of Sports Talk Television, powered by 320solar.com. See you soon. All right.
My pleasure. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Absolutely. Thanks a lot for your time once again. And let's go out to the comments here. Read some of these comments. Let's see here. Love the Cannons from New York. Gold Box, Buck Nation. William says it's possible for the Bucs to get the number 1 seed in the NFC. And the way this year is gone, I could see it happening. But again, that is going to consist of the Saints losing their games, the Bucs taking care of business, and certainly they can do that. We've seen it. So we'll see what happens. Let's see here. Sean says we got 12. Eugene says no turnovers. Got to love it. The NFL hates our players. Johnny Dean says because Bucs fans don't vote for Pro Bowlers, just look at the percentage of fan votes. F the Pro Bowl. Peter says Sean, Johnny Dean, Brady having one of the best statistical seasons ever, and no mention of him for the Pro Bowl at all. You're exactly right. He definitely has an opportunity, should have an opportunity in the Pro Bowl, but no mention of it. Don't understand why. That's how it goes. I want to see them in the Super Bowl, not the Pro Bowl. I think that's a really good attitude. Blake says, damn right, Peter of Bobby Wagner had the same exact stats. They would name him Defensive Player of the Year while also arguing one of the greatest seasons ever. Pro Bowl voting is a joke. Sean says, Brady is the Falcons' kryptonite. Of course, 7-0 lifetime versus the Falcons. So there you go. Pro Bowls count for Hall of Fame voting, so less Pro Bowls now mean less chance of Hall of Fame votes later, and it shouldn't be like that. John says we need to start like we are 17 down at the beginning. I absolutely agree with you on that. Sean says I saw and heard a lot of fans calling the team trash and so on. I would never root against my own team no matter what. Sean also says let Brady call the plays. And again, going back to those comments, and we would expect Greg Allman of The Athletic to be joining us here in just a little bit. We'll talk more about that. But if you look at Bruce Arians' comments, again, and this is according to Pro Football Talk, we lost to the Chiefs and the Rams by 3. Both of those games, spotting them points and playing this way. It's not going to happen. You're not going to beat those good teams playing this way. We've got to play better in the first half than we played today. And of course, 17-0 getting down. And then what he was saying today, with frustration, you got to play 60 minutes of football. And if you're not doing that, then eventually it's going to come back to haunt you. And I heard today, just reading on the internet and listening to radio, and he said this on WDAE during his show, it's not about scripting, it's about execution. And the Bucs have to do a better job of execution. But at the end of the day, also, those comments from the coach himself becomes frustrating because it is his job to basically get this team ready. And we would all agree here as Bucs fans, this team does not look like they are ready to play in these games. Let me read the rest of these comments and we'll get out to Greg Allman of The Athletic. For the first time in 13 years, the Bucs have a playoff clinching game they are playing in. Fire those cannons. Absolutely. Let's see here. Ari, not worried about the Lions, but I could see the Falcons being motivated to try and keep us from the 5th seed. John says, rhythm. Got to find it. They haven't been able to find it. Winston is on the team. Okay, get over it. Blake says, no audio, Pete. Okay, we had some audio stuff, so we'll work that out. Just like the Bucs, technical issues at the start. Let Brady cook. Blake says again, Willow, oh no, shots fired. Willow again. Definitely a Buccaneer fan show. Christopher says Steelers down 10-0. Jimmy says slow start or not. That's what potential champions do. Learn how to come back when behind. Love. Dennis Phillips says Roger Shue. And Joel says, I think the problem, honestly, is Bowles and Arians don't make adjustments on the fly. Even if nothing is working in the first half, they just don't adjust. They just stay with it. Finally, at the half, they go into the locker room, make adjustments, and then they start rolling. So, again, I think the issue is Bowles and Arians. Are they too stubborn to make adjustments on the fly? Now it's 17-0 Bengals. That's amazing. I tell you what, we'll get back to the comments in a moment. Let's get out to Greg Allman of The Athletic. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television, my friend. Victory Monday. Of course, Greg Allman of The Athletic. Thanks a lot for joining us on the Sports Web powered by 320solar.com. And look, they come back in the second half, 31-10. Run, kind of like the NBA. Brady, 390 yards, 2 touchdowns. Talk about his performance, and how surprised are you, Greg, that he's not getting more of a mention for the Pro Bowl this year?
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady has done this a lot. This is one of those where, for him, I think it's career fourth quarter comeback number 39 or something like that. So it's old hat for him, but to come back from 17 down, Bucs have never come back from down that much that late in a game before. So it's still a big deal. Obviously, they're the same team that dug the hole for themselves there early in the game. But, no, big win. I mean, Pro Bowl's tricky in that, Tom Brady has more interceptions than a lot of the elite NFC quarterbacks in terms of Rodgers and Wilson and guys like that. Doesn't have the rushing numbers that Kyler Murray has. So, he's probably in that second tier right now. And unfortunately, with this year's Pro Bowl, there's not all the injury substitutions and playoff replacements and stuff like that. So it's a little bit harder to make the Pro Bowl this year. But, I think he'd be probably the 4th NFC quarterback right now if most people were making picks.
Yeah, again, he's had a good year, and he has an opportunity to surpass Jameis Winston in single season record with touchdowns. Of course, maybe doesn't have necessarily all the yards that Winston had last year, but has less interceptions. That's definitely been a key. But can you put a finger on why this offense starts out so slow? 59-7 in the first quarter. It's just unbelievable. And you could see Coach Arians getting frustrated in his press conference, telling his players, and he said this, if we could play 60 minutes of football, it would be totally different. Instead, we're playing 30. You may be able to get away with that against the Falcons and bad teams like that, maybe even the Lions, but you can't get away with that against the good teams in the NFC, right?
Yeah, and they know that. They've said that. Why they're doing it so consistently, I can't say. And I don't think they can say. Otherwise, they'd be changing it. I think, third downs, they're struggling. The first third down they have, they had a long third down on the first drive this past game just because on second down they throw a screen pass to Fernand that goes for an 8-yard loss. So That's all it takes to derail a drive. They've gotten out of the penalties doing that, but that's a bad play. That's going to kill most drives that way. This is a team that takes a while on both sides to get ready right now. So, as you said, you can pull that off against the Chargers. You can pull that off against, the Falcons, even the Vikings. But pretty soon you're going to get in those teams where if you're down 24, you're going to lose 24. If you're down 17, you're going to lose by 17. So they got 2 more games to try and get things right. Detroit does not have a good defense at all. So that's definitely a game on Saturday where they should be able to get out to a much better start just based on who they're facing.
And we're on with Greg Auman of The Athletic on the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television, live on Bucs Report, powered by 320solar.com. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. You talk about these playoff scenarios. Of course, it's very easy. You beat the Lions, you're in the playoffs. But because the Rams yesterday lost to the Jets, you see a scenario where the Bucs could possibly be the 5th seed. Go ahead and explain that. And what do you think the possibility of that is? And then on top of it, what about the Saints? Do you think the Bucs can actually catch the Saints here if they lose their next 2 games? Or, is that just, basically wishful thinking?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots in play for the Bucs, and it's fairly simple. I mean, if they win either of the next 2 games, they're in the playoffs. They know it's just that simple. 1 win and they're in. A Bears loss and they're in. And the nice thing for the Bucs is that they control their own destiny to the 5 seed. If they win their next 2 games, they'll be the 5 seed ahead of whoever the runner-up is in the NFC West, which is great. I mean, if you get that for the Bucs, that means you're going to the NFC East champ, which is probably a team with a losing record. Certainly not as daunting as going to Los Angeles or going to Green Bay or going to New Orleans, anything like that. In terms of catching the Saints, it's just 4 things have to happen. They have to win their 2, and the Saints have to lose their 2. Saints could lose to the Vikings. It's certainly possible. Losing to the Panthers in Week 17, especially if a division title is on the line from them, that seems unlikely. But again, they're getting Drew Brees back after a good absence there, so they're not really clicking on all cylinders offensively. They won't have Michael Thomas for the rest of the regular season. So it's certainly possible. I mean, the odds on the Bucs winning the division right now are like 5 or 6% by most calculations. So it's still very much a long shot, but it's fun for them to have that in play with 2 weeks left in the season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, you have to play your best game. But as you mentioned, the Lions defense, not very good. So this should be a winnable game with the Saints. They have the Vikings on Friday on Christmas Day, which is kind of crazy to say the least. So we'll see what happens in that game, which is kind of a long shot here or shouldn't be a long shot, is Devin White. And you pointed this out on your Twitter feed, 130 tackles, 8 sacks. And I get it. Him and David are splitting votes, but it's kind of, there should be an investigation here, Greg. Devin White should be your Pro Bowl starting inside linebacker, and yet he's not. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I do think when you're not even sure who the best inside linebacker on your team is, that definitely divides the votes. Bruce Arians was talking about that today as well. Bobby Wagner is very well respected. He's a perennial Pro Bowler now for Seattle. He got the first nod. Part of the problem is that there's only 2 inside linebackers that make the Pro Bowl for the NFC. So Bobby Wagner got one. Fred Warner from San Francisco got the other one. Again, like statistically, Fred Warner isn't going to line up very well with a Devin White, for instance. The Devin White now has 8 sacks. Obviously, he just got 3 of them yesterday. So that certainly didn't really count in time for him to get help for the Pro Bowl with that. But Devin White has, 25 more tackles. Obviously, Devin White has struggled in pass coverage. That's not been a forte for him. But in terms of getting the quarterback, in terms of creating turnovers, he's been much better at that. More splash plays than Fred Warner has, and honestly, more than Bobby Wagner has. But those 2 have very strong reputations as being well-rounded linebackers who can cover the run, who can drop in pass coverage. Devin White has not been a good coverage linebacker this year. And Levante David is kind of right there with him as somebody who's put up good numbers, but again, kind of gets lost on the other. I think that the Bucs losing 3 of 4 there in the middle of the year, right in the heart of Pro Bowl voting, probably didn't help them either. It's odd to have only 1 Pro Bowler with Jason Pierre-Paul, but it's kind of where they are.
Talk about Pierre-Paul, 9.5 sacks. I mean, his story in itself is amazing. Coming off a broken neck, having 8.5 sacks in 10 games, and now leading them. I mean, you definitely have to be happy for him, and he continues to be, Jason Lights, I think one of his biggest moves, get him for a third-round pick. He's been one of the most consistent defensive players for this Bucs team, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, barely comes off the field. I think he played all but 5 or 6 Sunday win. So I mean, it's hard. There are lots of guys that are good pass rushers. There's not many that are on the field and as active as they are. Pierre-Paul didn't have a tackle on Sunday, which is crazy. But yeah, for his body or forced fumbles to have 2 interceptions. There's very few guys in the NFL that have the sacks he has and the interceptions he has. So no, nice for him to get it. He's certainly done it before, but it's been a few years for him. It's validating for him. Like you said, coming back from the neck injury last year, to have, what he's done to come back from his hand injury as well, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely pretty remarkable. Anybody else on this team do you think got snubbed? Maybe a Carlton Davis or Shaq Barrett that should have got some Pro Bowl consideration, in your opinion?
Yeah, you could. I mean, Shaq Barrett, obviously last year was easy because he lead in sacks, but only has 8 right now. I think he's done very well. I think he's second in the NFL in total pressures, but that's not a stat that's a very high visibility stat that most people know about or see. So he's going to be seen as just not as good as he was last year in terms of just casual fans looking at his numbers. You look at a guy like Carlton Davis, and he was leading the Pro Bowl balloting for NFC corners for a while. Jalen Ramsey obviously has a real strong reputation as being one of the best corners in the league. So he got one of the spots. Jair Alexander from Green Bay ended up getting the second one. He's on a better team right now. Carlton Davis has no picks in the last 6 games. Obviously, that Tyreek Hill first quarter for 200 yards wasn't a good look for him. So, no, it's one of those where I think it would have been nice to have Carlton Davis get in the Pro Bowl. I think if you just have normal game in Hawaii or even game in Orlando circumstances where teams, you need injury replacements, you need playoff substitutes, he probably gets in that way as the 3rd or 4th corner of the seat. But that's what we have this year. So unfortunately, the guys that made it today are the only guys that make the Pro Bowl this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, at the end of the day, Pro Bowls are nice, but Super Bowls are a lot better. And this team right now certainly seems like they're not necessarily focused on personal statistics and Pro Bowls. So we'll see how it turns out versus the Lions on Saturday. Greg Auman, go ahead and promote yourself. Where can they find you and read your work, of course?
Yeah, everything I write's on The Athletic, theathletic.com. I think you can get in right now for like $1 a week as a trial subscription, anything like that. I'm on Twitter at my name, just Greg Auman, GregAuman. And no, thanks very much for having me on. Happy holidays. Thanks again, guys, for having me on today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Happy holidays, Greg Auman. Thanks a lot for your time here on the Sports Web, powered by 320solar.com. All right. All right, good stuff. So absolutely, and he's got to run. So we'll go ahead and read these comments, and then we'll try to take a break and try to get this phone line working because I don't know what's going on tonight. It was working just fine yesterday. I'm asking for calls. We're getting calls, and now nobody can hear it. Amazing. And somebody said the funny thing was, this must be a Bucs show because it's starting out slow. Well, there you go. We're fitting right in here on the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. So the 2-win Bengals up 17-0 any given Sunday, even any given Monday night. Dennis, the Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, says Jimmy James. Williams says we can get the number 1 seed. Of course, you have to take care of your own business. And you certainly should versus the Lions and the Falcons coming up. You should. Bills at the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. I like that. Dennis, stop doubting the Bucs. This team will be a whole new team in the postseason. We shall see. But I get it. I understand the doubt. I'm a guy that's came on this show and said Super Bowl or bust, right? Or all in on the Super Bowl, as Johnny Dean would like to say. All in on the Super Bowl. But you got to play better than what you've done. You have to. And you've been able to get away with it against bad teams, but you can't do it all the time. You just can't. So Juju needs to quit dancing on opposing teams' logos. This Bengals team is fired up. It's a rivalry game. That's why you can't take anything lightly. That's why you have to be accountable against anybody in the NFL. It means not for long if you're not giving your best effort, if you're playing down to your competition. And we saw it yesterday with the Falcons. All right. Roger will be Buck in 2 years after Brady leaves. That means Aaron Rodgers, says Joel. Johnny Dean says 17-0 Bengals at the half. Bengals defense is all over Ben. And Gary says normally when a team starts slow for 8 or 9 games, preparation is the reason why. That's on coaching. Would that not be on coaching? So let's see if we can get the phone lines going here. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll take your phone calls if it'll work. 727-255-0391 at 727-255-0391. You're in the evolution of Sports Talk Television live on Bucs Report. Keep it locked.
Come to Sam Ash for hundreds of exclusive holiday deals on music and sound gear from the most iconic brands. Save big on professional and starter guitars, drums, digital pianos, horns, violins, DJ, and electronic production equipment. Supercharge your home studio with deals on podcasting, streaming, and AV equipment like speakers, microphones, headphones, and acoustic treatment. Plus, with 36 months no-interest financing on thousands of items, you can get the gear of your dreams right now. From our incredible selection and service to our lowest price guarantee for over 95 years, real musicians know you only go to Sam Ash.
Power bill through the roof? At 320 Solar, that power bill will be no more. In fact, about 90% of our customers report lower solar payments than with electricity. That's more power in your pocket. 320 Solar. Power up. Going solar with 320 may cost you nothing down. But the work we do is not a $0 job. With a 10-year roof penetration warranty and solar panels guaranteed for 25 years, you can have peace of mind knowing we will do the job right every time without question. 320 Solar. Power up.
All right, welcome back to the Evolution of Sports Talk Television. And remember, join us for the Deck Bar and Grill in Isla del Sol on Saturday, a special edition of the Evolution of Sports Talk Television, the Sports Web, getting you ready for Bucs versus the Lions on Saturday, a day after Christmas, as the Bucs have to win this game in order to get into the playoffs. If they win, you're in. And of course, you keep those slim possibilities of winning the division. Of course, you know, that will be decided on Friday with the Saints and the Vikings. If the Vikings beat the Saints, then the Bucs still have an opportunity, because if the Saints lose out, Bucs win out, then they win the NFC South. So there you go. So what do you think about this big time Bucs victory yesterday? 31-27, 31 points in the second half. Tom Brady, 390. I tell you what, let's go out to this guy who just joined the Bucs Report family, Mr. Harry the Greek, who I just call him Mr. 88%. Did that percentage, Harry, go up yesterday for you, my friend? Welcome to the Evolution.
Thank you very much for having me on. No, it didn't go up. It's hard to go up after, this type of season we've had. However, I did go 5 out of 6 against the spread this week.
Nice, very nice. And of course, the number or the game that you would say kind of gave you difficulty. And I want to talk about this, that Falcon Bucs game. This team is so hard to predict. I mean, all the time you saw in the second half yesterday coming out like gangbusters, but it takes them, it takes them a whole half. Can you explain it? What's your opinion of why this team continues to start out slow in these games?
Well, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. However, it's not a popular opinion. I kind of seen that happening yesterday in the first half, the pregame show. But I never in a million years thought that the Buccaneers were going to fall that far behind in the first half. I knew that Atlanta was going to come out it's a division. It's a division game. You have to expect that because they have nothing to lose, the Falcons. But never did I think they were going to be down by that much. And that's the only reason why we didn't cover that parlay.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And, Bruce Arians goes on his show today and says a lot goes into scripting what plays Tom likes and what we like. It has nothing to do with scripting the plays. We just need to execute better. In your opinion, is that what it comes down to? The players executing better? And at the end of the day, this is also on the coaching staff. You get tired of BA and the other coaches talking about slow starts. At the end of the day, this coaching staff also has to take the responsibility for these slow starts, right?
Without questions, you in this situation, in my opinion, because I've been watching every single game, being part of Buck Report. At some point, you have to blame the coaching staff, and I've been very indicting about Bruce Arians, including Todd Bowles and Leftwich and everybody else. They have the most talented team in the National Football League. I'm going to say it again. Statistically, not statistically, but at every skilled position, they can even be better than the Kansas City Chiefs, Peter. Okay? It is a coaching issue here. This team is coming out of the gate very slow. So if you've been doing this every single week, what's the one common denominator? The defense can't stop anybody in the beginning part of the game. They're not really getting very many penalties. So why aren't we making adjustments on defense? On the offensive side of the ball, the entire running game is a victim of volume here. The entire running game. When they were missing the starting left tackle in that game, you remember what I said, and I said it for the entire week. They've got to run the ball, especially if you want to keep your quarterback, who's 40 plus years old, standing upright in the pocket. And trust me, that's a scary game. These are the Atlanta Falcons. This is not the Kansas City Chiefs. This is not the Green Bay Packers. Those were the Atlanta Falcons. What's going to happen when you make playoff time, Peter? When they're playing another team who's going to come out hot, who has a lot of game tape on this team, especially defensively. You can't dig yourself a hole like that because they're going to run into a buzzsaw of a defense like Minnesota or other teams, in the NFC that can actually play some defense. Am I really worried about it? No. But they need to get back to basics. They need to play uglier football, not pretty finesse football. They need to pound the rock because when you pound the rock, you control the line of scrimmage. When you control the line of scrimmage, you're going to look absolutely phenomenal. I.e., a couple of weeks ago, what did they do? They ran the ball. They ran the ball successfully. They passed the ball very efficiently. Did they look extremely pretty? No, but it was a W. It was a convincing win. Yes, it was a great win yesterday because they got the W. And everybody's going to forget about it in 2 or 3 weeks because it shows a W in the stats. You would agree with that, correct?
No, I'd absolutely agree with that. And we're on with Harry the Greek here. I think I maybe have switched to switch around, so maybe we'll be able to take some phone calls. I think that happens sometimes. Once again, we're on the sports web powered by 320solar.com. And you look at not having a running game. We look at the numbers here. What is it? 18 carries for 51 yards. It's not going to get it done. You come off a performance versus the Vikings, 26 carries, over 100 rushing yards. So for me, at the end of the day, this team definitely missed the victim of volume in a Ronald Jones. And I feel like going forward, they have to have him to be the catalyst of this team, right?
Without question. Absolutely without question. And, and they really need to feed the ball to whoever is going to be playing running back because all 3 running backs on this team, okay, other than Ronald Jones, have the capability of putting up 100-yard games. Every one of those running backs can be a 3-down back. Look, they're about sewed up right now to make it to the playoffs. It would take an act of God for them to get eliminated going to the playoffs. Forget about seeding and where they're going. They just need to get into the dance. For God's sakes, this is the best season this team has had in many, many years, and Buck fans should be very happy. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just picking out some of the negatives that have me a little bit concerned, who watches a lot of different games, and I get to watch all the teams in the National Football League for handicapping purposes. If they just run the football and they give Fournette the rock, as long as Rojo isn't playing, I think the team is going to be fine. You've got to protect Brady. That's the bottom line. And when they're coming up to the Detroit Lions this week, and I said this 3-4 weeks ago, I thought the team would finish 4-0. The team that I thought that was going to give them the most problem. I don't see that happening, however. He is hurt right now, and I don't think that Matthew Stafford's going to be much of an issue in this game. And I agree with Dennis Phillips. I believe that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can end up blowing this team up. And right now the line is -8. That's a lot of points. So I haven't really made my mind of which way I'm going to go. I may end up taking Detroit with the points because Tampa hasn't covered literally a road favorite, I mean, being the favorites going on the road, except for one game this year. You know who that was? The Carolina Panthers. They just haven't covered. They got embarrassed by the Giants, even though they won. That was embarrassing yesterday in the first half, what happened in Atlanta, and they couldn't cover the spread in the second half. I mean, I can't name a game where Tampa has been so convincing on the road, except for beating a bad Carolina team. And I'm not saying that because I'm not saying that Tampa Bay's bad by any means. I'm showing a little bit of concern. But from a gambler's perspective, 8 points is a lot of points being on the road. So I'm going to tell you right now, the Detroit Lions are better than the Atlanta Falcons. They have a better running game. I like Matthew Stafford better. I like the receivers better when Julio Jones isn't playing. Their defense, Dennis Phillips hit that right on the head. Their secondary stinks. It's just as bad as what's happening in Atlanta. But they do have a decent front four that can put pressure on the opposing team's quarterback. So, and by the way, offensively, they run literally the same exact game plan that Tampa runs. It's almost like looking into a mirror, for play calling. That's what Detroit does. But Tampa should be able to pull out a victory in this game. It's going to be a little tough. I think it's going to be not the same way as it was in Atlanta, but I don't see Detroit being too far off in the first half of this game.
And we're on with Harry the Greek here, Mr. 88%. Probably that percentage went up even higher yesterday, 5 out of 6. It definitely went up higher here on the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. I'm your host, Peter Blake, on this Victory Monday after the Bucs defeat the Atlanta Falcons 31-27. You're exactly right. You mentioned running game right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers have had all kinds of difficulty in running the ball and being balanced. And right now the Bengals are beating them 17-7. So we'll see how that turns out. The Steelers just scored a touchdown. But going forward, if you're not running the football, Harry, in the months of December and January, when it's cold, and it gets cold up north, if you have to go up north and you don't play defense, you're in big trouble. And right now the Steelers are finding out what the recipe of success or not success for them is. And that's right, the reason why the Buffalo Bills are really having that success right now. They're having balance with the Josh Allen. They're running the ball. I just feel like it's so easy to talk about it, but yet there's so many teams that are not committed to it.
Well, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I said that about 3 weeks ago, that they had some holes in their team. I mean, I do like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and everybody had them rated up there with the Kansas City Chiefs. And at that point in time, I said Buffalo was the second best team in the National Football League, in the AFC, and a very close first with the Kansas City Chiefs, and it wasn't Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh got exposed by a very, very good defense from the Washington Redskins. And then when they went to Buffalo, I said, Buffalo's going to smack them around. It's exactly what they did. There's gameplay. There's tape on this Pittsburgh team. If you think I have a problem with the way Tampa runs the football, it's not even close because they don't run it at all in Pittsburgh. And that's the biggest problem. You also have another quarterback is on the other end of his career in Ben Roethlisberger. And you do have decent wide receivers. But if all you're going to do is chuck the ball down the field 45, 50 times a game, that's not too hard to defend. Would you agree with that?
No, I absolutely agree with that. And I feel like that's where the Bucs get into trouble. Although, 14 rushes yesterday total, and they throw the ball more, but I just feel like you can't win like that when you get down and you're one-dimensional. That's when you get into trouble. Although, the Kansas City Chiefs seem like they can do whatever they want to. Are they clearly the best team in the NFL? And is Dennis Phillips right? Are they the team to beat that's going to be tough to beat this year?
Well, they're the perennial Super Bowl champions, Peter. Are they the best team? Probably. But I'm going to go out on a limb right now. I think Buffalo is going to represent the AFC. I'm telling you right now, if this team stays healthy and they play a little bit better defense, remember, this is the same personnel that was there last year. They didn't automatically get bad over a year. I think it's just a little bit of they're getting a little too enamored with the way the offense is playing. But come playoff time, I got to tell you right now, Buffalo has a stifling defense. And Josh Allen, in my opinion, can go pass for pass with Patrick Mahomes. And there's one thing that Josh Allen doesn't do that Mahomes does. And it's one bad trait about Patrick Mahomes. Every time Patrick Mahomes rolls to his right, he's constantly looking at and surveying the entire field. Because when you roll to the right, the defense, the field's supposed to get a little shorter for him. He's supposed to be able to read it a little bit better. He takes way too many chances. Miami exposed them. They love to throw across field and across his body. He got picked off 3 times in that Miami game. Josh Allen doesn't do that. Josh Allen is a really, really good quarterback. They have a decent running game. But I'm telling you now, it wouldn't surprise me to see the Bills beat this team straight up in the AFC playoffs.
Well, they played earlier on in this year, and of course, the story in that game was not the fact of the offense, but it was the fact of the Bills defense not being able to stop the run from the Kansas City Chiefs. And I believe they ran for over 100 or over 200 yards of rushing. So the Chiefs can beat you a multitude of ways, Leo Word. So I'm kind of wondering, can that Bills defense, if there is a team that's going to run the ball, shut them down? You feel like they can do that?
No, it'll be a high-scoring game.
Okay.
I think whoever's going to have the ball last, honestly, is going to win that football game. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the Kansas City Chiefs. None. I mean, the guy throws 3 interceptions and you still win the game. However, that was against Miami and a rookie quarterback. This isn't the Buffalo Bills with a guy that's been in the league for a couple of years, who has good weapons and who knows how to manage the game as well as get into a shootout with another team. Mm-hmm. Had that been the Buffalo Bills, rather than the Miami Dolphins, Kansas City loses that game. You don't turn it over to Buffalo's defense with Buffalo's offense as good as they are 3 times and expect to squeak out a victory. That's a totally different ballgame. Miami's playing way above their means. And that, my friend, is this year's version of the 2020 no-name defense. That's a real solid unit. Not as good as Washington's unit defensively, but good enough for them to be in that division and possibly make the playoffs this year.
What about the Cleveland Browns? Big win over the New York Giants. Of course, the Giants, they can't score any points, but you give credit to where credit is due. After that emotional loss to the Baltimore Ravens, Cleveland comes out on Sunday Night Football and takes care of business. Where do you see them? Could they be in that conversation of getting to the AFC Championship game and giving a team like Kansas City or Buffalo a run for their money?
A couple of weeks ago, before they were playing the Baltimore Ravens, we were really enamored with what Cleveland was doing because they were running the football so well. But something happened in that Raven game. They got very unlucky and lost that football game. And when I watched them against the Giants, this was not the same team that I watched play prior to the Baltimore game.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take them lightly. They're a very good football team, but they're not on the same level as Kansas City and Buffalo. They would need a little bit of luck to get by either one of those teams. Actually, I think they would need quite a bit of luck because defensively, they're not quite as strong as either one of those two teams, as far as I'm concerned. And Kansas City is not a powerhouse defensively.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's the thing with Kansas City. I mean, to me, they're not a powerhouse defensively. That's what kind of scares me. If there's a team out there that can run the ball, but once again, all the offensive weapons and Patrick Mahomes and how amazing he is, I think it's going to be difficult to beat them in the long run. Somebody mentions RIP to Kevin Green, of course, the former linebacker of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and of course, the Carolina Panthers, and I believe a stint with the San Francisco 49ers. You remember Kevin Green, 160 sacks all time. Talk about him a little bit. And surprised that he passed away at 58 years old. These NFL players, the life expectancy is really sad.
It was very sad. It was very sad to see that. And there's way too many people dying at a very young age, especially the people that play professional sports. My prayers and condolences to Kevin Green's family. That's just way too young. I didn't get the details on how he passed away. I just seen it come across my ticker on my phone. And quite honestly, I was very shocked and saddened by that as well. I don't know if the man had been sick or what the issue was, but there's something about these players that are playing from the 80s and the 90s that they're just passing away, and they're passing away way too young of an age. And I'm not going to sit here and try to speculate why they died, and I'm not alluding to that, but it's just a very, very, very sad day.
Yeah, it's a very sad day, and he was one of the most dominant defensive players in his era. But you're exactly right. In that era, it was a tough, hard-nosed game. There was no safety precautions. You have concussions. I'm not saying that's what he passed away from, but you can see a lot of those players in that generation passing away at a very early age. Now, going back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are you surprised that a Devin White and Levante David once again get snubbed? And should there be an investigation? I get it, Harry. They play the same position, but Devin White, the numbers speak for themselves. 130 tackles, 8 sacks. You've got tackles for loss. I mean, the guy can pretty much do everything. And Levante David, how can he not get the pub that he deserves? I mean, throughout the years, he's been one of the most consistent players in Tampa Bay Buccaneer history defensively. And once again, no Pro Bowls. Make some sense of this.
Unfortunately, Peter, when you don't live in cities like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and you're not that major market team, it becomes a popularity contest. Would I like to have seen him being nominated, to go to the Pro Bowl? Absolutely. But is it going to make him any different? Absolutely not. Those are two stud players. Think about what's going on in Chicago. Roquan Smith, look at those statistics. He's not even a mention, Peter. Not even a mention. So I understand it. I get it. But that's ridiculous on why they're not even going to the Pro Bowl this year. I don't get it. They're both having career years.
No,
but like I said, it just totally depends on who's popular and who isn't.
Mr. Tampa Bay Ray Kennedy, the sports web sounds so good in these new Beats by Dre headphones I got today. There you go. Merry Christmas, Ray Kennedy. Ray Kennedy also says, I think defense recognition got snubbed because of he confused the world. Has been about the Rubik's Cube of an offensive philosophy the Buccaneers have. I don't even know what you just said, Ray. I'm just going to go ahead and... Yeah, I don't know what that... I honestly don't know what that was there, Ray. So you got to explain that to me. Call up on the phone lines. Let's see if we can get somebody on the phone line, see if this is working. 727-255-0391. It's 727-255-0391. Yours truly, along with Mr. Harry the Greek here on the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television, having a little bit of tech issues tonight. So we're seeing.
Peter?
Yes.
May I go into the lobby for exactly 10 seconds? If you notice, I'm carrying my earpiece in my hands.
Yes. I just
need to fix my audio. Literally take me 10 seconds.
Absolutely. All right. Let me go ahead and put you in the lobby there. Let's see if we can take some calls. Welcome to the evolution. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me? All right. Let's see if we're getting can the folks out there hear you? I hope they can hear you. Can they hear you? Go ahead. Keep talking. Mm-hmm. Do me a favor. I don't know what's going on with the phone tonight. Do me a favor. Go ahead and chime in if you want to get on the video. We'll have you on video. No, I can't. I don't know what's going on right now. All right, buddy. I don't know what's going on tonight. This is very frustrating. So I don't understand it. Phone line worked fine yesterday. Now it's not working for some reason. So let's go back out to Harry the Greek here. We'll get him on. We're having some phone problems tonight. I don't know what's going on. Buttons are being pushed and it's not working. So
Do I sound any better?
Yes, you sound a lot better. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No problem. No problem at all. You look at Devin White's game yesterday, 10 tackles, 3 sacks. I mean, he definitely came up in that spot. And like I said, that's why I feel like there should be an investigation on why he didn't make the Pro Bowl. But once again, 1/3 is the fan vote and the other are the coaches and players. You would think that they would recognize a player like White, but obviously they didn't.
Devin White's probably top 2 or top 3 in the game right now. I don't even know how to even explain that, why he's not even getting considered for it. It's just mind blowing. But I'll tell you what, if Tampa goes to the Super Bowl this year, I think everybody's going to forget about that Pro Bowl.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that everybody will be forgetting about that Pro Bowl. And I think at the end of the day, you're not just, thinking about Pro Bowls. You're not thinking about individual accomplishments. Of course, you look at yesterday's numbers with Mike Evans, over 100 receiving yards. In fact, 6 catches for 110 yards. People now still talking about that 1,000-yard receiving. But I think at the end of the day, whether it's going to Mike Evans, whether it's going to Chris Godwin or Antonio Brown, as long as you're putting up wins, it really doesn't matter, right?
Without question, it doesn't. Talking about Mike Evans, I see he come up lame on one play. Was he okay after that? Has there been any report about that? Because that's going to be a real key piece for the rest of the year.
No, I agree with you on that. I haven't heard anything to that. Nothing has been reported as having an injury. Of course, the concern with this team right now going forward would have to be Carlton Davis and that groin injury. You hope that he doesn't miss a considerable amount of time, although you have the Lions and, of course, you have the Falcons. You want to have one of your best players in the fold, and a groin injury can be a lingering injury.
Absolutely, without question. Any word on Ronald Jones? What's happening with him? Has he got any timetable on when he's going to be back?
I'm thinking he's probably going to come off the COVID list. Of course, he's still dealing with the fractured pinky, so we'll see how that plays out. But I still feel like they're going to need this guy down the stretch in order to help their running game out. You could see Fournette in that second half, he played better. I don't know what's happened to him. Maybe it's the carries also, but it just has not been the same running back he has been in the past.
My wife said hello, by the way. She just passed by and she goes, "Hi, Peter."
Hey, how you doing?
Rojo, I wouldn't mind terribly if he sits out of this game. I definitely think he needs to play in the last game of the season. It's kind of like his tune-up game against Atlanta. And I don't want to see him get a ton of touches. You really want this guy to be healthy, but he's going to have to check out and make sure that finger is going to be okay, throughout the playoffs. You definitely don't want to try him out in the first round of the playoffs, and I'm sure you would agree with that for obvious reasons. Because even though you use two hands to tuck a football, people are going to be trying to swipe at that hand. You don't really want him to fumble the ball or anything. And I mean, how is that going to affect him in the passing game? I don't know, but it didn't really affect Godwin too much when he had pins in that finger. So I'm praying to God that he's going to be okay.
We'll wrap this up here in just a little bit. We'll read this comment from No Sound. I get it. We have no sound tonight. That's perfect. Perfect on a Victory Monday. What I was saying is the entire NFL sloppy top the Buccaneers offense all season, and because they have yet to identify an offensive identity, Levante and Devin got snubbed a little bit because the talking heads and coaches are trying to spread the love. But the problem with that is, Tampa Bay, Ray Kennedy, there's only one player that's going to get into the Pro Bowl, and that would be JPP. Talk about him a little bit, Harry. 9.5 sacks, leading the team, the kind of story that he's been coming off the broken neck issue last year. I mean, unbelievable turn of events.
He is not the victim of volume when it comes to getting interceptions at defensive linemen or even putting pressures on the quarterback and ultimately even getting sacks to the quarterback. This guy is playing, honestly, with a hand and a half, and he's the ageless wonder. And I actually think since he's got to Tampa, he's gotten faster. I have never seen anything like this, not from the Reggie Whites, the Richard Dents. As they got older, they got slower. Even Michael Strahan. This guy's gotten faster. He's playing the run better. He's rushing the passer better. I've never seen a defensive lineman or DN go into coverage as much as he has, and forget about it. Pass defended, tip balls. I mean, he does it all. I mean, I can't say enough other than thank you, New York Giants, because it was a blessing when he came down here to Tampa Bay.
And absolutely, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, Jason Light absolutely deserves credit for that trade. You only gave up a third-round pick for Jason Pierre-Paul, and he's been one of the most consistent players, not only defensively, but on this team, whether he's hurt or not, he still comes to play. So he's just like a hard-nosed player, a blue-collar type of guy that just continues to get it done no matter what his age is. And to extend him and trade for him, Jason Light absolutely deserves credit. So, Harry, any final thoughts before I get out to Liam Mitchell here, YouTube extraordinaire?
Absolutely. There's no real final thoughts. I think it's going to be a very exciting finish to the season. The Chicago Bears and the Arizona Cardinals are fighting for the final position in the playoffs. It's going to be quite fun to see who's going to make it, and I just can't wait till the playoffs start to come. This week, Tampa's going to Detroit. They're -8. I haven't come up with a decision exactly what I'm going to do, and who I'm going to take on what side, whether I'm going to lay the 8 points or I'm going to have Detroit, cover. There's just, look, man, it's just great to be in football season because 2020 has, for better sacred terms, it really sucked, man. It really has. But football, thank the good Lord for football because we have something to do on Sundays. We love you, Peter, and thank you so much for having me on.
All right, there you go. Harry the Greek, Mr. 88%. That percentage is going up after going 5 for 6 last week. We'll see you on Wednesday night. All right, boss?
Take care, Peter.
All right, appreciate you there. Harry the Greek, thanks a lot for your time. Alex says, let's see here. Okay, it's not coming up for some reason. Okay, the victim of COVID. No, it's the victim of volume here. So I don't know what's going on here. Hold on a sec. Let's see if we can get out to Liam Mitchell, and then we will get back to it. Mr. Liam Mitchell, welcome to the Evolution of Sports Talk Television on a Victory Monday after the Bucs come back and beat the Atlanta Falcons 31-27. Welcome, buddy. How you doing?
I'm great, Peter. The Bucs are 9-5. Thanks for having me. I was getting pretty worried in that first half, but I guess we're getting used to it now with the Bucs and all these slow starts. But what a second half. I thought that was arguably the sharpest football we've seen Tom Brady play in that second half. 340 yards, spreading the ball around all over the field, and just great to be 9-5, Peter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great to be 9-5. And once again, Tom Brady shows himself 390 yards, 2 touchdowns. Are you surprised, first and foremost, with his performance this year? Already 32 touchdowns, only needs another 2 more to surpass Jameis Winston from last year for the single season touchdown record for a Bucs quarterback. Are you surprised by that performance in general? And are you surprised that he didn't get more Pro Bowl consideration? Because again, he is Tom Brady and he's doing all this at 43 years old. It's pretty tremendous.
It's amazing at 43. We've really never seen it before at this age for any quarterback in the history of the league. And I think it's a shame that he didn't make the Pro Bowl. I'm a little bit surprised. I'm not surprised that Aaron Rodgers made it. I'm not surprised that Russell Wilson made it. And I think Kyler Murray was that third guy. I guess they went with the young gun who's had similar stats to Brady. But I mean, when you're doing what he's doing at 43, with the record we have, all these all these new pieces and no preseason and all that thrown in, I am pretty surprised he didn't make it. What doesn't surprise me is that he is having the season he's having. For years now, I've told myself, never doubt the GOAT, never doubt Tom Brady. He's one of a kind for sure. And I'm not surprised by him bouncing back and the Bucs making the adjustments to have that great second half on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, and can you put your finger on it? I mean, can you come up with a solution? Bruce Arians is very frustrated by it. He tells his team if they could play 60 minutes, instead they're playing 30. I mean, could you put your finger on it? Is it play calling? Is it coaching? Is it execution? I mean, what is it? Why does this team continue to be plagued by slow starts in the first half?
I've been asking myself that for weeks now. I mean, it's mind-boggling. I think the Bucs have started down and I think 8 of their last 9 games, if I'm not mistaken. The one game that we did start up was 3-0 against the Giants, and then we were at one point losing that 14-3 in the first half. It's really mind-boggling. I don't know if it's just miscommunication. Like this week, there was miscommunication along the offensive line. Tom Brady was getting a lot of pressure in his face there in the first half, and yeah, you wonder if it's the coaching and what they're doing in the first half that's just not working. It really is mind-boggling. And I continue to ask myself, what is the issue? Why can't they play the way they did in the second half, in the first half? Because in the playoffs, on the road in January, you're not going to want to be in a 17-point hole. You're not going to want to be in a 6-point hole. You want to start fast.
Yeah, you definitely want to start fast, and this team is inability to start fast. And even Coach Arians said it today. You may be able to do that versus the other teams, but you can't do that versus the playoffs. The playoff teams coming up. And of course, if the Bucs beat the Lions on Saturday they're going to be in the playoffs. I mean, do you agree with that? They lost to the Chiefs this year by 3 with a slow start. They lost to the Rams by 3 with a slow start. You really can't get down to these good teams in the playoffs. You may be able to get away with it against the Falcons and possibly the Lions. Hopefully not, because you would think they would, blow them out, but you can't continue to do this.
Yeah, you can't continue to do it because eventually you're not going to get that comeback from Tom Brady, especially against the better teams, especially if we're on the road. It's extremely difficult to dig yourself out of those holes. You don't want to put yourself in those situations week in and week out, and we've seen it way too often with this team. Hopefully we can get off to fast starts here at Detroit and then hosting the Falcons and then take that momentum into the playoffs, hopefully as a 5th seed. The Jets really helped us beating the Rams on Sunday. Now whoever loses that Seattle LA game, I mean, the Bucs are basically in there. If we can win these last 2 games here, you're basically controlling yourself, and you can be this 5th seed and then probably travel to Washington or New York.
I'm going to read this comment. Alex says, RJ was on the COVID reserve list, was he not? Yes, but you were trying to make fun of my nickname, so I had to go ahead and do that. Anyways, I'm with you on RJ. He needs more touches early to open up the play action and possibly a faster start. I agree. I think they have to run the ball. And as I said on this show, the catalyst for this offense going forward to me is the victim of volume and a Ronald Jones. Talk about what you saw from Fournette yesterday. He played better in that second half. As a team, they only had 60 yards of offense in that first half. So what did you see out of Fournette yesterday that gives you some type of encouragement going forward if he has to be the starting running back for this team?
Fournette stepped up. He did. I have to agree with you, Peter, that Ronald Jones is still the best running back on this team. The play of the game from Fournette, go back and look at the tape. He stepped in on a block and just stuck Keanu Neal. What a collision that was. It was a huge block because I think we made a pretty big pass completion downfield to, I think, Mike Evans on the play. But 2 touchdowns, both goal line situations, but he had a pretty solid day. And if we don't have Ronald Jones coming up here this next week, I'm confident that Leonard Fournette will be able to play pretty well for us. And like Harry just mentioned, maybe it is for the best to not rush Ronald Jones back with that finger, because we definitely want him for the playoffs and probably for that Week 17 game to secure a 5th seed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, do you want this team to have a 5th seed? I get it. It sounds all well and good, but remember, you're going to face the Washington football team. They have a pretty talented defense. Look, offensively, they don't know who their quarterback is right now with Alex Smith being off and on hurt. I mean, that story in itself has been amazing. Dwayne Haskins is a starting quarterback, but the Washington football team definitely does have a defense. So are you aiming for that 5th spot, or are you okay? Do you think this Bucs team can play a Seattle Seahawks right now? Because it seems like the Bucs could be catching the Seahawks at the right time, especially with the struggles of Russell Wilson lately.
Yeah, I still say play for the highest seed. Play for the highest seed, control your own destiny, win all the games that you can. And, who knows? If you are the 5th seed and the cards fall your way, you could end up hosting the NFC Championship game as a 5th seed compared to, say, a 6 or 7 seed. I do think if we do play a team like Seattle, that I like our chances. Seattle's defense has really struggled this season, and I think the Bucs match up well against the Seahawks. I will admit Washington has looked really good these past 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it's been. But I think I would like our chances a little bit more against Washington than Seattle.
All right, and we're on with Liam Mitchell. Tell everybody out there what you do exactly and how they can be a part of it, because it's really interesting.
Come check me out at Bucs Archive with Liam Mitchell. I post all kinds of Buccaneers highlight videos on there, current players, former players, just all kinds of stuff. I do Bucs recaps, Buck previews with my co-host Chuck Fonchell, and it's just all Bucs football. I love making the highlight videos. I got a ton of them going to be coming out here once the season is over, hopefully in February. Whenever.
Yes. Well, I'm still waiting for that intro video. I still want that intro video. Hopefully you can make it against the Lions. Of course, that would be the next opponent coming up on Saturday, a day after Christmas. Of course, some things still need to be settled, namely the Saints, because the Bucs actually do have an opportunity to win the NFC South if the Saints lose out. In your opinion, do you think they could stumble versus the Vikings and the Panthers, or is that wishful thinking on my part?
Well, if there's one team that's the Saints' kryptonite, it seems to be the Vikings that have had their number over the years, ever since that '09 championship game. But I do think this year the Saints are going to get them this week. The Vikings just are a bit of a shell of themselves from the past few seasons, and it's just tough to see the Saints losing 4 consecutive games with as talented as they are. So I think it may be wishful thinking, but I'm going to have to say that the Saints are probably going to win at least one of their last 2 games, and we'll gun for the highest wild card seed we can. Who knows, though? Of course, I'm going to be rooting for them to lose. That's for sure.
I mean, I definitely think everybody's rooting for the Saints to lose, especially with the troubles that the Bucs have had. And just watching the Saints once again choke in some way or fashion, it would be great again to see. With all that being said, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Pro Bowl came out tonight. There's only one Pro Bowler that's going to make it. It's JPP. Are you surprised that once again, not only Levante David, but a Devin White who has 130 tackles, 8 sacks, is snubbed? I mean, make some sense of all this for me to understand.
As a Buccaneers fan, I've taught myself to not get annoyed and not get frustrated with the selection process of the Pro Bowl, because it's the same thing every year. I mean, I think guys like Ali Marpet and Levante David should be consistent Pro Bowl players year in and year out, and year in and year out, they're snubbed. I'm shocked Devin White didn't make it this year. I'm pretty darn surprised. Bobby Wagner and Fred Warner are good players themselves, but I'm very surprised Devin White did not get in. Now, we talked about it a second ago. I was a little surprised Brady didn't get in. I'm very glad JPP got in. I think it is very well deserved. But, as a Bucs fan, my favorite example is 2013. Levante David had one of the best individual defensive seasons I think we've ever seen in Tampa Bay. And we've had a lot of good defenders come through the doors at One Buck Place. But he won first team All-Pro that year. He was a first team All-Pro, but didn't make the Pro Bowl. And it just made me chuckle. Like, it was that right there. I was like, you know what? I can never take the Pro Bowl seriously anymore. And that same season, Darrelle Revis made it, and he didn't really have that great of a year. It's just a popularity contest. That's what it comes down to. I think it's just one big popularity contest.
Yeah, that's what the Pro Bowl is always about. That's why I don't get upset about it. And the Bucs being snubbed, it seems like a likelihood, especially when it comes to Levante David. Talk about JPP and his story coming off a broken neck from last year. Of course, 8.5 sacks in 10 games this year, leading the Bucs with 9.5. I mean, amazing. And once again, as I keep on harping on, Jason Light did an extraordinary job of getting him for basically a 3rd-round pick. He's been one of the most consistent players on this Bucs team.
Yeah, he's been unbelievably consistent. We really got a steal out of JPP. 12.5 sacks his first year here, 8.5 sacks in a shortened year last year, and now he's almost got 10 again. He's gotten his hands on the ball, I think, 4 times this season, a couple fumble recoveries, couple interceptions. And it's like you said, it's that consistency that we get out of him week in and week out. You know that you can trust him. The thing I love about JPP is he wants to be on the field. He never wants to come off the field. You know how much this guy wants to win. And I love it when these players are passionate about football and they want to play, because that makes you want to love him and it makes you want to back him. They're the kind of players you want on your team. He's a great leader for this defense, a veteran that's won big games before, won the Super Bowl years ago with the Giants. And I'm just so thrilled that we have him. I'm thrilled Jason Light made that trade. And hopefully we can get JPP some more playoff wins as a Buck this time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think that's what a lot of people are still focused on. Mike Evans yesterday has a big game. Of course, what did he finish up with? 6 catches, 110 yards, no touchdowns, but really he was a big part of that offense. Do you see him eclipsing that 1,000-yard receiving where now he's in the conversation by himself, or do you think that he misses out on it because this offense is so focused and catered on getting it to the open man instead of forcing it to a player like an Evans?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I think he's at 779 yards now with 2 games to go. So he'd have to have 100 yards and a little bit of change over the next couple weeks. And like you said, I think this offense is more so thrived around we're going to throw to the open man. So it's going to be really tough. But, I mean, as long as we're winning games, I think that's all you can ask for. I hope for Mike Evans' sake he can go 7 seasons consecutively to start a career with over 1,000 yards. I think he may fall just a little shy, maybe over 900, 950 maybe. He might fall just shy, but you never know. You can't doubt Mike Evans.
Well, I tell you right now, the Lions defense is not very good, so
No.
they're going to have every opportunity to do it. In fact, it's one of the worst in the league. So who knows at this point, but the way Brady spreads the ball around, it's amazing. Speaking of amazing, Brown, and that would be Mr. Antonio Brown, and his performance yesterday, catching his first touchdown since, I believe, week 2 of 2019. Talk about him and how surprised are you and what kind of impact he's not only made on the field, but off the field, and saying he hasn't made, he hasn't been a disturbance or a distraction off the field like we kind of were looking at the beginning of this signing process.
Yeah, I think as far as on the field, I'm not surprised that he's still out there tearing it up. I think that the talent was known, and I think everyone knew that he would continue that. I am surprised how quiet he's been. I think he's only posted maybe one time on Instagram. He's really been quiet. He's kept his mouth shut, and that they clearly told him when they signed him, look, you cannot be out here mouthing off. You got to just keep your mouth shut and go play football. And if he can keep doing that, then I'm happy with him here, because he's obviously a very talented football player. What a great play yesterday. Absolute beauty of a pass by Tom Brady over the top. And I texted my friend. I had a gut feeling right before the game. I said, he had Antonio Brown starting in fantasy. He's like, should I start him or should I bench him? I said, you know what? I got a feeling he's going to touch pay dirt today. I think he's getting in the end zone. So, and he did. And he did it. And was the game-winning touchdown with a little over 6 to play.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big-time key, and you could see that he still has that explosive nature to him. And I thought the best thing about it was when he catches the touchdown, the first person he hugs, it's Tom Brady, and he definitely looked like he was more humbled and just happy to be a teammate of not only Brady, but be on this Bucs team and a part of this big-time comeback victory over the Atlanta Falcons. So with all that being said, how do you see this Lions game playing out? I mean, there's questions about Matt Stafford. Could he return to this team? They may go a different direction. I mean, they've already fired their coach, not good defensively. They have DeAndre Swift, but they're without one of their top wide receivers and a Gallman. Not Gallman. A guy escapes my name at
Galladay.
this. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you might as well be Gallman. He's been missing in action. So how do you see this team or this game playing out between the Lions and the Bucs?
Yeah, I think this is one of the more favorable matchups of the year for the Bucs. Never sleep on anybody. They're an NFL football team, but like you said, interim head coach, not a great defense. Questions with Matt Stafford. They're probably basically playing for a draft pick at this point. This is a game the Bucs should not lose. I don't see them losing this game. I think it'll be kind of similar in terms of a score that we saw last year at Detroit when we faced off against David Blau or whatever his name is. But yeah. But I think this is going to be an easy win for the Bucs. I sure hope so. But you never want to sleep on anybody in the NFL.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to sleep on anybody. And speaking of sleeping or sleepwalking, that would be the LA Rams. How surprised were you yesterday of that loss to the New York Jets? I mean,
I was shocked. They were clearly looking ahead to the Seattle game. And, LA's been great this year. The number one defense in the NFL, I think, coming into the week, at least in terms of yards. And I thought the Jets were going 0-16. I thought it was a lock that New York was going 0-16. But here we are. And I'm a USC guy out here in LA. I couldn't have been happier that Sam Darnold and the Jets took them down. So, because that helped the Bucs for sure.
Yeah, no, it definitely helps the Bucs because once again, as we talked about the playoff scenarios with Greg Allman of The Athletic, if the Bucs went out, they could definitely have that fifth seed where they play the NFC East. And I think that's where a lot of teams want to play, especially with the way, Washington, they got beat. They play tough versus Seattle, but they're not very good. There's not a team in that division that's going to finish at 8-8. So there's really an opportunity here for the Rams with this big loss to the Jets to, again, kind of lose and give that Bucs the opportunity where they could play an NFC East team. So we'll see how that goes. I'm just the NFL to me is an ever-changing league. You just never know. I just can't figure it out. You look at the Chargers going on the road where the Raiders basically need to win that game, but because of play calling and turnovers, it changes it. It changes the whole aspect of it. Right now, it looks like the Pittsburgh Steelers are having trouble with the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, any given Sunday, any given Thursday, it's amazing to me.
This is why I love the NFL. This is why the NFL is my life. It's my favorite thing in this world. Every season's a new season. There's new faces, and there's new coaches, and you never, ever know in the NFL. The 2007 Dolphins went 1-15. They throw the Wildcat at you with Tony Sperano, and they're 11-5 and winning the division a year later. That's the beauty of the NFL is that it's any given Sunday. And I mean, yeah, look at Pittsburgh. They were 11-0, which was really surprising. And now, I guess I haven't looked at the game tonight, but I guess they're struggling with Cincy. I think they have a couple tough games coming up for them too. They're on a downward spiral themselves.
Yeah, they're definitely on a downward spiral. You look at the AFC, you have the Kansas City Chiefs disposing of the New Orleans Saints, although the Saints come back with Drew Brees in the fold, but they went 32-29. In your opinion, is it Kansas City and everybody else in the NFL, or do you think, I mean, I'm not asking to be biased here. Of course, Tampa played them. They have the weapons, but everybody else in Kansas City, in your opinion?
I think it's Kansas City. I think Kansas City right now, I think they're like 23-1 or something over their last 24 games. Only a handful of teams have done that over the course of history. I do think there's teams out there that can beat them, though. In the AFC, I think teams like Indianapolis, who play really good defense, are a bit of a dark horse who could take them. I think they match up pretty well. And Josh Allen is out there balling in Buffalo. But as far as the NFC, I think the Bucs have just as good of a chance as anybody to beat the Chiefs. I know we lost to them already this season, but we did make it a close game there towards the end. And, I think if we played them again, we may see a different outcome.
Yeah, you may see a different outcome if you can get off to a good start instead of course, getting down early. And that's going to be the one thing to watch with this team going forward. And that would be the Bucs with their slow starts. It's just maddening. It's frustrating. Still words from Bruce Arians. If this team could play 60 minutes, we would definitely be having a different conversation. Going back to the Pro Bowl, can you see any other players, Liam, that you think deserved more consideration than what they got?
Well, Antoine Winfield Jr., because he's a rookie. First of all, what a play he made in the corner of the end zone yesterday. Really, could have been maybe the play of the game. What closing speed to break on that ball to Calvin Ridley. But I think Winfield Jr.'s just had an awesome season. I think Jamal Adams made the Pro Bowl. I didn't think he was having the best year on the planet. He's just another popular name. I guess he does have 8.5 sacks, so I did forget about that, which is pretty impressive for a DB. But regardless, I loved what I saw from Antoine Winfield Jr. this year. Alex Kappa, shout out to him. I think he got the most fan votes in the NFL or something for a guard. I've actually, a buddy, one of my best friends that I played high school football with, was on the same offensive line at Humboldt State as Alex. So I've had the chance to hang out with Alex a couple times. He's a super great guy. I'm super happy for him. But overall, it is disappointing that we only had one Pro Bowler. Just not surprising.
Yeah, it is disappointing. And again, there were a lot of players. I think, Tristan Wirfs should definitely be in consideration with what he's done as a rookie on the right side to not give up a lot of sacks and just come in there and solidify his position to protect Tom Brady. I felt like he should get more consideration, but it's neither here nor there. We'll see how that works out with the Bucs going forward. Maybe that's a motivational tool that gets them fired up to not have these slow starts. I have no idea at this juncture. Once again, I've never seen a team have so many slow starts, but it seems like they can just turn it on at any given time. And who knows? Maybe they can get away with it. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk had something interesting in his article about the slow starts and Bruce Arians. He said that the Kansas City Chiefs did that last year in the 2019 playoffs. And if you actually look back at it, Liam, they did have all those slow starts, and they still came back and won the Super Bowl, even versus the San Francisco 49ers being 10. They had their own fair share of slow starts. So I guess anything is possible, but expect more in this time point at week 14 that they would be better than they are.
Yeah, you just, again, it's not, as fans, we have to hold our breaths, but you just don't want to see it. You want to see a team start fast, get up early, and then consistently play well throughout the game. You never want to be down big early, because you're having to play a different game than what you really want to play. You gotta, for example, if we're down big, it's hard to run the ball with Ronald Jones, who should be a catalyst to this offense. So it's something that we've really, the biggest thing that we need to fix heading into the playoffs, because you don't want to be down 10, 17, nothing in Washington or in Seattle or in LA.
Yeah, no, I agree, because if you're down and then basically you have to change your whole game plan, you become one-dimensional, and then that's when the defense starts pinning the ears back and you start to see the pressure, which is what Tom Brady has really struggled with this year. When I read this webhead remark here from Harry, Big Ben just eclipsed the 60,000-yard mark. What an accomplishment. Do you think he gets enough publicity as being one of the top quarterbacks in this era? I believe he's already won 2 Super Bowls, so why doesn't he get more publicity as one of those top-flight quarterbacks? Is it the stats alone?
It is a bit surprising. I don't know if it's just the stats alone, or he's just played so long and it has been a long time since he's been in a Super Bowl. Good question. I don't really, maybe it's guys like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson with more talent, and Tom Brady that just won more games that overshadow his career. And maybe people think it's the defenses that carried Pittsburgh to their Super Bowls. And I mean, it's hard to argue because they did have fantastic defenses and a good run game. But, I personally think Ben Roethlisberger is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I'm sure he will be, and he deserves respect.
Yeah, and I think this is a good point here by Rick Hughes from the cheap seats, and of course, what's cooking in the South. He doesn't get the recognition because he has not been well liked as a person. Right. I think that comes down to what you talk about. A Russell Wilson, even an Aaron Rodgers, pretty good personalities. Big Ben off the field, maybe not necessarily liked, but goes about his business in a blue collar manner. And it looks like the Steelers have just scored. So now it is 24-16 pending the extra point, as the Steelers have just had their troubles tonight with the Bengals team that has nothing to play for, is without their starting rookie quarterback in a Joe Burrow, but continue to go out there and play. And that's what you kind of worry about with this game on Saturday, a day after Christmas, is where's this Bucs team's mindset and where are the Lions? The Lions want to play spoiler. Of course, you still have the Falcons on this schedule. So, can the Bucs pull this off and clinch a playoff berth, which has been playoffs? I mean, I got to say it right here.
Jamora.
Yes.
Talk about playoffs?
Yes.
You kidding me?
Playoffs. Right. Exactly. So,
how many times have the Bucs been on the other side, where we've been the team we're looking at a top 5, top 10 draft pick, and then we end up playing spoiler at the end of the season. So the Bucs cannot sleep on the Lions or the Falcons in these last 2 games. Come out hot, get off to a good start, keep your foot on the gas pedal, and really go take this win and build momentum, build the momentum from that second half. Bring it into that opening kickoff against Detroit and just keep that momentum building right into the playoffs.
Absolutely. Good stuff, Liam Mitchell. Go ahead and promote yourself, what you're doing once again with YouTube. Of course, Liam Mitchell in the archive, the Bucs archive. I mean, watching all that stuff that you have there brought back great memories. So go ahead and promote yourself once again.
Yeah, guys, come check me out on YouTube at Bucs Archive with Liam Mitchell. I post all kinds of Buccaneers highlights and videos on there, current former players, all kinds of stuff. I'll be doing a lot of current player highlights right whenever the season finishes, hopefully in February. And then, come check it out. I got recap videos, preview videos, Bucs Archive with Liam Mitchell over there on YouTube. Have a lot of fun over there.
All right, there you go. Liam Mitchell, thanks a lot for your time on the evolution of Sports Talk Television, the sports web, powered by 320solar.com. All right, boss?
Thanks as always, Peter. Great coming on. Have a great night, man.
Absolutely, buddy. There you go. Good stuff. So we'll wrap it up. Thanks to the great Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News. Of course, Greg Allman of The Athletic, Liam Mitchell there, and of course, all the web heads out there. We had some phone problems tonight. We'll get them settled. We'll have Buccaneer great Mr. Ricky Reynolds on at 9 o'clock, hopefully taking your phone calls and questions here on this Monday night, this Victory Monday, after the Bucs take care of business over the Atlanta Falcons, 31-27 to go to 9-5. It's pretty simple, ladies and gentlemen. Beat the Detroit Lions, take care of your business, and you're in the playoffs. Do 3 things for me. Almost to Tuesday morning. We're only, 3 days away from Christmas. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you guys, and do 3 things. Bring your passion. Bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. I'm your host, Peter Blake. We'll see you on Wednesday night on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. Have a great night. Evolution. Sports Talk Television live here nightly. All Bucs report. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about on tonight's show. Bring your passion. Bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. Will you shut up and be quiet?
Come to Sam Ash for hundreds of exclusive holiday deals on music and sound gear from the most iconic brands. Save big on professional and starter guitars, drums, digital pianos, horns, violins, DJ, and electronic production equipment. Supercharge your home studio with deals on podcasting, streaming, and AV equipment like speakers, microphones, headphones, and acoustic treatment. Plus, with 36 months no interest financing on thousands of items, you can get the gear of your dreams right now. From our incredible selection and service to our lowest price guarantee for over 95 years, real musicians know you only go to Sam Ash.
Another great team win in Atlanta. It's all about the comeback. Merry Christmas to you guys. I hope you have a great week with your families. And we'll see you Saturday in Detroit. Let's go.
Brady, quick throw. Godwin is in. Touchdown, Tampa Bay.
Well, this is all done by just the pre-snap alignment.